Hi everybody and welcome back. This is a video about a model I'm preparing right now. I don't know if it is at this point something that will go to production or not, because I've been already some models around about the 964 RWB Porsche. This is one of the Porsches made by RWB. Nakai-san is a Japanese artist that reinterprets the shape of the modern Porsches with his own taste, usually adding these extra fenders much wider to host much bigger wheels. I have here samples of them that I will talk about a little further in the video. And so I don't know, I was talking about any kind of production because I seen that around, and also this one that I basically took in the beginning was I think you can find a review of this 3D transkit, they call it, and it was some part that I bought on eBay. I think they can be from the black box company, or I don't want to do names, but this is not the original black box, so maybe something went wrong in the preparation of the file. Usually the people working with the 3D, they have a giant community where they have some files that sometimes they share each other, sometimes they steal each other, so I have no idea how this end from the guy to whom I bought it on eBay. Was very kindly guy, and I mean the approach of the seller was extremely kind. He's a guy that I'm in touch with him, and I have no blame for him, because he probably is not a modeler, he just reprint items produced or that he find around. I don't think that he designed at his first, but I know that he can adapt to different scales, so probably this was, and also from some details that I found in the kit, that was originally meant to be a real 1/24 scale. So the basic kit was including the 4 side fenders, the 2 rear and the 2 front, with a quite huge rivets side over that. This is the rivet that I took it away and I remade with mini drills there. I think I used the 0.4 drill of this set. This is the famous set that also you can find online quite easy. They are quite famous or infamous because they are very easy to break. Of course they are not probably and surely for the price that they ask. I think this is stuff that you buy for $20, something like that, but you see it's extremely easy to break up the finest one, even if you use them with a mini drill by hand. I have that Proxon that is probably the softest around, as well as this this is my Ryobi that is much stronger. Is also on the line of the Dremel, so you cannot use this fine drill with that type of tools, but they anyway break so easy. It's not a big issue because they are quite cheap to buy back, so it's okay to buy. But I remade all the pins that this car have. They are rivets in the real car, because he cut the original body exactly like I did here. He cut all of it to make it fit, so you cannot leave the under part of the fender or the original fender to host bigger wheels, but with a much bigger channel, inside. I think they are still working around 15 or 16 inch. They are never too big or such a WB. I don't know honestly the specifications of this model, and this was meant to become the body for the 964 Chloe Apple. I think is a car currently or in Germany or in Austria, anyway in Europe, and it was quite famous. Probably we'll add a presentation, a picture of her in the beginning of my video, because it resembled the livery of the Porsche 935 K3 Apple car used in the late 70s. I think it was 1980 or 1981 or 1979. I don't remember honestly right now. I don't remember, and to modify and to adapt this part, it was a little bit of hell, because all the parts were when they arrived to me. I bought these items, I think it was January 2024, and I'm currently building this that is now in August 2024. Before I moved to Sweden, this is, as you can see, my Swedish contour, my Swedish point where I do my model, my studio here, and I prepared all the parts to be fitted inside a smaller box. I used one of Andrea's box, even if it is not KMP, is not the producer of these items. Honestly, Andrea works quite better than this, with his own limits, but it's slightly better than this stuff. And the problem was that when I opened it again, the box, after 3-4 months since I bought it, I was cleaning all the parts from the 3D support. If you see the pictures of these items, very often they arrive uncleaned, so it means that you buy the items still from the frame of the 3D printer. You still can see some cracks under there, but they were extremely wrinkled, so all the parts were wrinkled and completely off of scale. For example, one of the most scary part of the conversion was this side skirt that here I had to modify, and you still cannot see properly the measure of the modification. Is that here you can see that proper, that white spot that you can see here. This is plastic that I had to add because my side skirt was shorter off nearly 6 mm on a side, and I took, when I made the proportion of the model, since the door, this space here and this space here to give it to the proper dimension. So I don't think I made it wrong. I adapted the body coming from Italeri Revel 964 port. They were quite nice in the shape, not so detailed because it was a model produced by Italeri in the middle 90s, so it's anyway the quality of Italeri of that years. Not that today is still so much better in Italeri models, but of course it's not a Tamiya kit and so on. And only my concern was that every time I see other modelers making stuff with the 964 RWB, every time there was, in my opinion, a misunderstanding for the proportion of the car. So if you see closely at the picture of the real Clover Apple, she look really glued to the ground and still quite slant like a Porsche. It's still quite looking like a real Porsche. And I think the best shape ever, it was taken by Solido in their 1/18 model die-cast. It's a slightly different version of the 964 RWB because it's the version with the different side skirt, much more slimmer on this side, and with this fake in RWB intake for the brakes and the engine completely closed. But that body is absolutely well done, is absolutely spotted on. So probably I think they made it with a proper 3D file instead of this one that surely to keep the price of the transkit at the end a little more cheaper. They just provided logically just the exterior parts, to be fitted. One of the much heavier lacking in the model is the missing of the typical drop side mirrors. So if you buy the same item, you can Google it or find it on eBay later on or after my video, you will see that there is no details for the side mirrors, that in the 964 and in the 993 series Porsche they were so particularly drop, extremely difficult to scratch build, so you have no clue. Or you use the Porsche 993 GT2 from Tamiya, so that model, or you go for that model, the 964 from Italeri, as well as the Turbo and the Turbo 2 of the same series, even made by Revel Italeri, so there is no other ways. But the point is that this transkit is referred also from the original maker of it, like a body that should be used over the nicest street kit there is around. That is that model up there of the Turbo 88 from Tamiya. In reality you cannot use it because the Turbo 88 first of all have a completely different rear light. In the 964 these were a little bit angled, instead in the 911 is still completely straight 90 degrees to the floor, so this is a very big difference with that. Secondary, as I say, the side mirror, these are drops one, instead that other model have still the big palette version, much more 80s car, so you cannot do it. As well as the front light are also different, they probably propose, and that is my idea, that probably it was not made by fellow modelers. When you buy stuff, as you see in my channel, you will find also, I still don't know if I placed them online still or not, the models made by Andrea, that KMP, or even better the Ferrari 296 made by Fola from Scale Production, or there is several other modeler, or even better, that one up there is the Porsche 962 from Mezzo Mix from Christian Frank, another amazingly skilled modeler. So when the item is coming from a skilled modeler, you are nearly sure that everything fits, or everything is in the proportion that you can make it by your own. When you buy stuff from unknown guys online, you never know if in the other side there is a modeler or not. I suspect in this specific case there was not a modeler there, because there is so many mistakes. Also the front end, the tier resemble quite better in my opinion the final part of the 964 Chloe Apple, quite square there. It is not coming from their transkit. It was coming from my conversion parts of the Porsche RSR, the 1974 body that I just made. This was a scrap part from the first edition, the one made in gray resin. This was the original part. You see how different it looks. I hope with one hand that I can show you how different is the look of these items. That is my part. This is the original part. You see also the side under the arrows is slightly different, is much less deeper, it's much smaller. Also this final end here they copy basically what was the bumper of a turbo car of the 964. Instead, no, in the real Chloe Apple they made much wider, much longer. And as I say, it is strange because anyway, even if most of the parts don't fit at all, like the side skirt that I just told you, but the front and the rear bumper are quite okay. So I really have no idea, no clue really. The most horrendous part that I get in this kit, and once again I say it horrendous, it was about the rear wings, that triangle side intakes in the main rear wing, resembling again a copy of the Turbo 993, the one with the triangles. This was specific for the 993 models, plus the upper wing made that way, so aggressive and so on. But well, it looks quite straight here, still not perfectly straight. I still have to work on it. It's just a temporary fitting, of course, but it was completely wrinkled, completely, I mean, in a way to look like a tape. It was completely wrinkled like that. So it was a nightmare to keep it straight. I had to use the hair dryer to keep them straight, even if many designers told me that the 3D material keeps memory, so I don't know if it will remain fitting and so on. So it was really disappointing. To keep the model at this level was really a challenge. I mean, I like this type of challenge, and I didn't plan in the beginning to do for something big like this. Remember that I think the last year Alpha model made Alpha, I don't know what they call it, but Alpha Model, great company from China. They do excellent stuff in resin. I have some stuff to do for them, but they do excellent stuff in resin. They made a 964. I don't know if in that kit it was provided with separate parts like this one, or they provide an entire body, because every time that you have separate parts, even molded in resin, in ordinary yellow resin, it's always a mess in keep them to shape. So I think in my opinion, is absolutely much more worth it to spend much more money, because of course the part is much bigger, but to take a complete part of a body. When I made my RWB, this was the narrow body, that other version of RWB 911S, narrow, and it was based on the S model, so it was basically still a 964 modified in all the body panels, still keeping the front look of the racer of the 70s of the same series, so it was different here, much more aggressive. But I provided, I don't think for so much money, because it was slightly more expensive than the separate part that I took it here. So if I had the opportunity to buy a complete body, I think probably it can be C1 model. Maybe Chris from the C1 models made it, the maker, the starter of this series about the RWB 124 scale. Chris was once again an excellent model. So when we talk of modelers, and that the item is coming from a modeler wherever he is in the world, modeler provides stuff that other modelers can do. That's why I like so much when I see guys. I have a collection of pictures, and should make a gallery on my page, about the modelers around the world that made the model using my parts and so on, and they look amazingly stunning, really stunning. As in many RSR made in Germany, made in the USA. There was that famous series that I made with the 997 GT3R, there is a branch of modeling in America that they did amazing job with my model, you know, really, really much nicer than what I did like a demo car, you know, because you never know. That is the nice part of this hobby, that when the stuff goes in other hands, you never know if in the other side there is a newbie that just like your items, or there is an ultra skilled modeler that can make it even better than you, and I love such stuff. So I think it was absolutely better to provide a body like this in a unique piece. Of course, more pricey than the part. I think the parts I paid for 50 to 60 euros, something like that. This was around, I think I sell it for 90 euros. So it was not so much more expensive, but because of course you have already a complete body there fitting and waiting for you just to be cleaned up, remark the line, keep it straight, ordinary stuff with ordinary resin, not ready-made. So this is stuff that don't make any jokes. This is the stuff that I made 3 years ago now, 3 years ago, and it's still here, completely standing, no wrinkles at all. It doesn't wrinkle. It is made, part of the price it is because they are made by a professional, but this narrow body is still there. Is still there, and you will have no surprises for it. That's it. Extra parts are, this is the interior that I will fit, you know, coming from that 964. It's perfect because the Rauwelt are anyway street cars, so it's okay that you have the speakers on the back, the seats there, so it's okay. You don't need a racer interior, you know, for this model. And the parts are here. I just wanted to compare what they provide, like wheels, instead of what I provided. This was basically a slightly modification of the wheels that you can find in Chris C1 model wheels. You know, basically the dimension is extremely similar and the same. This look a little bit nicer. This is a little bit different. You know, both of them are wrong to do the Chloe Apple car because she had some amazingly strange inner pockets, so they both are not suitable, but we will see about the finishing look of them. You know, I made it much, Chris made it much more wider than this. This have the positive part that I can keep it a little bit stretched, you know, this is the inner part of the channel, so it's possible to keep it in this way, to look it a little bit stretched like they do on tuning car, you know, because the Chloe Apple is basically a tuning car. That's it. There is minor parts for the chassis that I have no use, of course. Also the front bumper was completely different, you know, I had to change this part as well as the front bumper here. This was also completely different, so everything in the front of the model have been refitted, and that's why in the beginning of the video I say that I will consider and study a little if it is worth or not. Probably not, I already tell you, a production of this kit. Just maybe write it in the comment, you know. I remember that ready to produce this was very expensive for me, even if I had great satisfaction because I sold a lot of them. And I was not expecting this from an RWB, not an historical car, it's just a tuning car, you know, but people liked that, so just write me in the comment for you, what do you think, you know, about this idea. Moreover, here we have extra spares I just added, you know, because I have many bodies of 911 running around, you know, also for spare. And also I decided to keep one of that 993 GT2 I showed you before, like a donor. They have wonderful Recaro seat, they have a wonderful Porsche steering wheel. This was the drop side mirrors that anybody places in the RWB 964 model, and it's always because they are fantastic. They really keep the special look of this car. Instead you go for a Vitaloni California, one of the historical one, but that's a different story. And that's it. This is a part of the inner exhaust. Look how it wrinkled it already looks. I know there is the way to keep it straight, but it's anyway sad because you are working with stuff that you hope react like ordinary resin. Instead, no, they are not the same. This gray 3D resin, every time you go for a 3D kit, keep this in mind. They are not ordinary resin. To work with it is a pain in the ass, because to cut it is constantly like to cut the glass, so every time they don't follow lines is really remind to me the very first edition of the very first crispy resin we had on the market in the 80s and 90s about military items. So that's it, guys. This is the status of my work until now. Just write me in the comment what do you think, and thanks for watching, and see you in the next.